Near and far, young and old, people of all age, ability, and gender, welcome back to the Smash Ultimate Tag Team Tournament. Hello there, folks. It has been a long time. Um, Happy to see you. I know that most folks are probably gonna be seeing this in the VOD and not actually live, so I'm just gonna keep this rolling unless someone pops up in chat. But generally speaking, I have not been streaming a lot lately. It's just not something that was a priority, and I didn't really have the time or the energy for it. But this seems like something that's important to come back for because we finally have our full roster for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which means we can do a final, presumably, Smash Ultimate Tag Team Championship. Now, for those who are new to this, um, it is a 2v2 CPU versus CPU tournament of Smash Bros. Characters with the teams based roughly on theme, so that the assorted characters year over year have sort of gotten this little bit of story as to what their team is and why. But to get into the nitty gritty details of exactly what the mechanics of it is for those who really know their Smash Bros. It is 7 stocks per character. There is life sharing on, so if one character gets completely blown out, they can take a stock from their partner. They are CPU level 6. We tried it with level 9, but we found that it's actually less fun to watch because they're all just dodging each other constantly. They don't have as many bombastic plays. The final smash meter is off, but the smash ball is on with a medium smash rate or spawn rate. None of the other items are on. The stage selection is random, but every 2.5 minutes it morphs between two stages. So at the start of the match, 2 stages are picked at random, and then every 2.5 minutes it goes from one to the other. And then if it gets to 5 minutes, it goes back to the first one, and so forth. Um, Stage hazards are on, but we have curated the list of battlefields to keep the really excessive ones that the CPUs just flat can't handle out. Um, there's still going to be some that are going to give them trouble, but the really egregious ones are not in there. Underdog boost is on, which means that when a team starts to really fall behind, they get a boost to their attack power, which keeps the matches more interesting deeper into the match. Past that, we have a seeded bracket. In the chat, if you type !bracket, you'll get a link to it. Or if you are watching this in YouTube, it'll be in the description. We are doing a predictions contest. There isn't any prize other than pride, but if you would like to go through, make your predictions before the tournament actually starts next Friday, and whoever gets the most predictions correct will have their name on a little trophy in the break screen here until the next time we do this, or something else, I guess. I don't know what exactly we would do for it next. I am intending to come back to streaming more. I'm hoping to do an Elden Ring playthrough. But I want to finish my first one first, so I don't need to worry about spoilers. I could actually look stuff up. But I might just go and do it anyway. So that'll be in the days to come. I just need to figure out what my doctor appointment schedule is. So, without any further delay, let's actually get into the teams that are in this year's roster. Now, the teams were seeded in such a way that if they are a returning team, they got put in the top section of the seeds. So, the first 28 seeds are the 28 teams that have participated in previous years. and then sorted by the round that they have reached in each of the previous years, sort of averaged out. Uh, their best performance outweighing their lesser performances. So a team that has like every year gotten to like the third round will still get beat out by a team that got to like that didn't get to the third round most of the time, but did get to the fourth round once. Meanwhile, the new coming teams, so the other 36, I want to say, because it's 64 teams total, had their participants evaluated individually by the raw number of wins they had each year that were weighted exponentially. For example, the Me Gunner Proto Man was a newcomer last year. He had 4 wins, so he got 16 points. Toonlink had 3 wins last time, so they got 8 points for that year, and 1 for each of the previous winless years that he had participated in for a total of 10. So, let us see these teams. So, in the number 1 seed, our previous champions, Ganondorf and King K. Rool, Big Bad Beef. Now, this team has a lot of launch potential, which is a very notable trait to have in these matchups, because you really have to just connect a few times when you're a heavy character like that to take somebody out, which is why they performed so well over the years, and what got them the number 1 seed. Now, our number 2 seed is the team of Ness and Sans Game Theory. These two have performed fantastically in the 2 years that they participated, making it to the Final Four both of those years. They've not won yet, so we'll have to see if they're able to close it out this year. Coming in at our 3rd seed, another long-time performer, Cloud and Ike, the Broadsword Buddies. Similarly to Big Bad Beef, they have a very strong launch potential, and that makes it so that they can take out their opponents with relatively few strikes. Now, closing out our top 4 seeds is Mega Man and Proto Man, as mentioned previously, the Mega Men. These were a new team last year, but they did do very well. And so, even though they don't have the experience of some of these other teams, they did make it right up on the top of the list. Next up, a surprisingly well-performing team from last year, the team of the Minecraft Zombie and Piranha Plant, Mulch. Now, these two were not expected to do well at all. In fact, I think they were one of the bottom seeds last year, and they made it significantly deep into the competition. And so they are a much higher seed this year. Up next is Zero from Mega Man and Shulk from Xenoblade, the Laser Bladers. As we get into the lower seeds, or like the middle ones, we're not going to have as much to talk about. But this was another one where like Shulk had not performed that well in the first couple of years, but the addition of the Me Swordsman Zero here really was able to like raise their game and like fill in some of the gaps that Shulk had previously, and so they're pretty far up. Next up is, I believe, our year 2 winners, the Gun Show, Samus and the Me Gunner. Now they are sort of the opposite of the heavy hitter teams, where they are much more about zone control and able to harass out their opponents without like letting them close in, and that is what they kept them ranked so high. Another sleeper hit that has earned their place over the years is Corrin and the Me Swordsman D&D Homebrew. This was a team that got in the first year through the wild card bracket. In fact, they weren't even seeded. They only made it through by winning several pre-tournament matches. And then they went on to finish very well and have been performing consistently thus far, which has gotten them up into the top 8 seeds. Moving into the new section is Luigi and Simon, the Ghost Hunters. Another unlikely duo here. bonding only over their mutual hatred for the undead. These two have been pretty consistent in their performance. Not usually topping the pack, but rarely falling below like 2 or 3 wins in a year. Next up is a perennial crowd favorite, Roy and Roy. Roy's Our Boys. Originally just a name gimmick from the fact that there was a Koopa Kid with the same name as another character. Roy's Our Boys has been reasonably well performing throughout the years and has been a crowd pleaser ever since. Next up is the Princes of Wolf Rules, Wolf and Ridley, the Space Pirates. Now, Ridley is too big for Smash, as many people say, so it's always a gamble as to whether that will be to his benefit or detriment on the year. It tends to help him out against the smaller people that he's up against, but against other heavies, he just provides too large a target. So that's what keeps him out of the top 8, but still pretty high ranked. Wolf is also just like a well-rounded player, and surprisingly, by far the best of the space animals in the this particular niche of CPU controlled characters in tag team games. Next is Marth and Marth as Marth Madness. Now, when I say Marth the second time, I of course mean Lucina, who used Marth as an alias for a while, and is also an Echo Fighter of Marth, to just be a more well-rounded version. While these guys were our original #1 seed, they've sort of slid down the rankings over the years, because they've never had incredible performance. So we'll sort of see if they're able to reclaim their former glory, or if this is just going to continue their trend downwards. If this is the case, this might be their last year together if we do this later. Next up, another surprising entrant from last year is Richter from Castlevania and Minato Arisato from Persona 3, the Reaper Beaters. This is another Mii Swordsman team that did surprisingly well over the years. There isn't a whole lot to say here other than it is interesting to see how well the assorted Miis perform. Because while they are similar, they do all have slightly distinct movesets. And finding out which one plays out best is a very interesting thing to keep track of. Up next, another sleeper pick from previous years, our #14 seed, Iggy and Larry the Koopalings as Crazy Kids. The Koopalings have had a wildly varied track record. With partners such as Bowser, they've never won a match. With partners like Roy, they've done fantastic. And Iggy and Larry have sort of been in the middle of the pack. At #14, that puts them at the middle of the seeds for the returning teams. They're never, like, incredibly shining, at least previously, but they have done some good work, and it's not wise to count them out more often than not. Up next, another team that, like, didn't find much success until they started working together was Dr. Mario and the Wii Fit Trainer at #15, our health group. Both of these participants had some difficulties in the early years, but have found moderate success by teaming together and are looking to replicate that in years to come. Next up, another team with me in it is Tifa from FF7 and Little Mac from Punch-Out, the Boxing Club. At #16, closing out our top quarter, we have our first team that has a distinct strength and weakness. If you get close to the Boxing Club and don't have a way to beat their reach or a way to break their footing, they're a very powerful team. But if they get a bad stage where their footing isn't able to be as consistent, they can just absolutely get plastered. Little Mac is a very powerful character with very clear weaknesses. Moving into the second quarter of the bracket, at #17, we have Incineroar and Inkling, Hot and Wet 2. Now, this team has shown significantly more success than the original iteration of Hot and Wet with Greninja. And while Greninja has seemed to have tumbled down the rankings, Incineroar has actually seemed to raise his stock over the years. And so we'll have to see if this is maybe the key combination for these two, and if a second year together will allow for their combinations to work a little better. Moving on to the 18th seed, another sleeper pick that was a fan favorite. Rob and Lemmy. Remy, their mascot, is a rat. While these two were the last two put into a team when creating the teams for last year, and we couldn't figure out what else to do with the combination of Rob and Lemmy, but sort of just smashed their names together, we ended up with this. And then they did surprisingly well. They didn't win or even come particularly close, but they went significantly further than we had originally expected, and so we're not entirely sure what to expect from that going forward. Coming into the number 19 slot, another tried and true team is Spring Awakening, Robin and Chrom, or specifically the male Robin. Now we had to stretch this team, this roster thin to meet 64 teams. So that means we are using basically every variation of a character that feels like a distinct character, and Femme Robin is in a different team further down the list. But Chrom and Robin have been a proven team so far in that they have this combination of range and up-close damage that they've been able to synergize particularly well, which is fitting because they're from the same game. Next up, another one of those heavy hitters that haven't seen the same success as those higher up the card is DDD and DK, DDDK. These two have similar advantages that last year's winner had of Ganondorf and King K. Rool, but instead, they've not performed as well, partially because of bad matchups, and partially just because of luck, or maybe they're just not as good as the other two. But these two have potential, and there is no point during a match with them that you can count them out until they have been completely eliminated, because a single stray hit from either of these competitors could send someone hurtling off the stage. Moving on to number 21 is Lucas and Mewtwo, Psystrike. Now, these two have not performed particularly well, but that's been true in basically their entire career of participating in these, whether together or apart. And so they decided to stick this out for one more year and see if they can turn that streak around. Or maybe this is just the place to call it quits for both of these people. Next up, number 22, Young Link and the hero from Dragon Quest, specifically Erdrick, is the Heroes Across Time. Now, these two did not perform particularly well, but notably, the hero Erdrick is one of the only DLC characters that have ever won a match on their first year, their first competition post-release. I think this might have something to do with the AI and it being patched over the years. We'll go into that a little more afterwards as we're talking over the bracketology. But it is notable that Erdrick has performed surprisingly well for his station. And so even though these two didn't do particularly well in the previous years, they might be one to watch this year. Moving on to number 23, Rex and Pyrrha/Mithra, the Beyblades. This is where we're really starting to get to the dregs of the returning teams. Pyrrha and Mithra have not done well. And Rex is also, like, very minimally well-performing, with, I believe, just one win between them. But, as a DLC character, they do have some pretty distinct powers, and if the AI has improved over the year since their last performance, they might be someone to watch. Both Mii Swordsman and DLC characters are, like, potentially very dangerous. So we'll have to keep an eye out, even though they are ranked relatively low for the returning teams. Next up is Mr. Game & Watch and the Vault Boy, the Retro Wreckers. these two have not done particularly well either, but as a me gunner, the Vault Boy is particularly swingy. Like, those gunners have done fantastic and also poorly. And Mr. Game & Watch is also very swingy in that he does have a move that, if it connects, has like a 1 in 9 chance of just destroying someone immediately. And that is interesting. So it's definitely hard to keep an eye out, and that's why we didn't put them at the very bottom of this set. Next up is Snake and Barrett from FF7, the Machine Gun Men, number 25. This is another team that's very heavy on their projectiles, and so it will depend who they get matched up against on whether they are able to really close this out, or if it will be more of a situation where they just have someone close in on them too quickly and are taken out before they have a chance to gain control of the situation. Next up is our number 26th seed, Greninja and Altair from Assassin's Creed, the Wetworks. Greninja has been one of those characters that has always felt like they've never really lived up to their potential. They have a lot of movement options and agility, but they do have difficulty closing out kills to actually secure a win against their opponent. Altair, as a new swordsman, has not had that problem. And so, theoretically, this team should shore up one another's weaknesses. In practice, that has not been the case, but perhaps we'll see that change this year. At number 27, we have Meta Knight and Solo, one of the heroes from Dragon Quest, as the Weird Sword Squad. Now, Meta Knight is still paying for his sins in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and has been nerfed into the ground from his original dominance from back in that earlier game. But he still has some glimmer of hope, and has at least notched a few wins in his belt over the years. And Solo was also a reasonably performing hero as compared to some of the other ones. Moving on to the final of the returning teams is number 28, Morton and Wario, the Brute Squad. Now, these two have not had much success, and honestly, I think the only reason they're still together as a team is because there isn't really anybody else that particularly wanted to team with them, so they're here at the bottom of the returning teams. There isn't much to say other than any team in this has broken our expectations repeatedly, so if the Brute Squad ends up doing better than expected, I wouldn't be that surprised. Now we are moving on to the teams that have never been in a previous year. And we are starting that off with one of the winners of our first year, a member of the Authority, Isabelle, and her new partner, the Doom Guy, in Newest Horizons. Now, Doom Guy, as a me gunner, has a lot of potential. They have typically performed particularly well amongst the navies. And Isabelle was a former champion, and in fact could have been ranked way further up if they had simply stuck together with a previous partner, whether that be the Villager or Alex that they were with last year from Minecraft. But instead, they have sought out their true best friend, the Doom Guy, and are going to try their luck with this new pairing. In a similar situation is the OG, number 30, Peach, formerly of the Bourgeoisie, and the Villager, formerly of the Authority, both very high-ranked teams that have broken up over the years. They've decided to team together and be one of the higher-ranked new teams. I'll be curious to see if their abilities synergize well, because while they have had significant success with other partners, they've never actually teamed together. Moving on further down to number 31 is Sheik and Daisy, the Tomboys. Similarly to the OG, we have two people here that have both performed fairly well. Sheik, not as well as Daisy, but Daisy has a very significant record over the years. And when putting those two together, is notable. Next up, number 32, the good old 358 over 2 days, Cuphead, and specifically Timeless River Sora. Now these two are joined largely on their aesthetics, and are ranked as high as they are, both on the potential of the DLC character Sora, and on Cuphead's previous performance, which was very surprising, given that they had sort of come out of the blue. So they are ranked very high for a new team. Moving on to the second half of the bracket, or the third quarter, depending on how you want to look at it. We have a classic team that surprisingly hasn't appeared previously. Link and Zelda, The Legend. Now, these two are very compatible fighters. They've almost been designed that way. They have a lot of traits that complement one another, and a lot of experience outside of the Smash realm. Whereas just fighting together or for one another. But this is new to this tournament, so we couldn't consider them a pre-existing team. Moving further down, we have a team of secondary characters, Ken and Dark Pit, the Tinted Mirror. Now, Dark Pit has actually always outperformed his light side counterpart, but Ken has not had that luck. And so the two of them, while thematically linked, did not actually fought together. It would be interesting to see if Ken, who is a close-range fighter, is able to synergize with the more mid-range Dark Pit. Sorry, drinking some water. So yeah, these two are another one of those teams to watch of the new teams. Because while their records hasn't been stellar previously, they've both shown a lot of potential and could theoretically end up further up the card. Next up is the team of Falco and Zero Suit Samus, Hunter x Hunter, or Hunter x Hunter if you want to pronounce it the way the anime is. As a pair of bounty hunters, presumably they would be compatible as people from space. Maybe they have some similar experiences. They're both pilots, and they have some similar information going on, so we'll be curious to see how they can work together going forward. Moving on to number 36, one of our stranger combinations, but still ranked high because of the performer's previous showings, is Toon Link and Fox, Disney's Robin Hood. Credit to Drew Chapeau on that name. I think it speaks for itself. Moving on to the next one, number 37 is the Luminary from Dragon Quest XI and Femme Robin from Fire Emblem Awakening, the Caster Masters. Both of these characters are very flexible magic users that also have some reasonable game up close. While they haven't had incredible success in previous years, they do show a lot of potential, and we'll have to see if they're able to actually capitalize on that or not. Robin has been shown to be somewhat dependent on good pairings, as has the hero. So if this works out, they might really shine, or it might just not fill in each other's gaps and accentuate each other's weaknesses. Coming up next, we have one of the new DLC characters, Kazuya from Tekken and Lucario from Pokemon, Team Pokken. As a reference, both the name combination and that one fighting game for Pokemon, these two are going to work together. Both are martial artists. I have no idea what Kazuya does. To be honest, I haven't played that character at all. He does lasers, I think, but also punches a lot. I haven't played Tekken, and I haven't played this character in Smash, so he could be anything. So we'll have to keep an eye on, I guess. Next up, two of our most popular characters, although not our highest performers, teaming together for the first time. Mario and Pikachu, the market leaders. If this were a contest of marketability, these two would be the shoo-in #1 seed. But instead, it is a fighting contest. And while both of these have had middling records previously, they have not topped any charts. And so they are here at the 39th seed. Next up, a team that got surprisingly deep before being formed. Al That's Left, Alex and Alf. Now these two were the two last characters to be paired into a team. And yet, Alex has a stellar record. She did very well with Isabelle last year. And Alf has not been too bad. I have no idea if these two will have any synergy whatsoever. They both have some very strange gimmicks that make them very difficult to predict and also very swingy as compared to what their power level is. But because of Alex's record, these two ended up significantly further up the list than some of these other folks. Moving on to number 41, Hero 8 from Dragon Quest VIII and the Dovahkiin in Dragon Side Quest. Now, Skyrim has not that much to do with Dragon Quest, other than both have dragons and involve quests, but these two might be able to get along as similar sword users. You know, there tend to be a lot of those in these games. And we'll have to see if a Mii swordsman is what the hero needs to shine. Next up, Team 42, Dark Samus, a previous high performer, and Enderman, the Unknowable Evil. Another weird combination. It's always difficult to predict where one of the Minecraft characters will show up, because they have such interesting mechanics that often nothing comes of, but if left alone too long can get out of hand strong. And Dark Samus has been just a consistent performer. The dark side of their previous team with Dark Pit has done particularly well, but never really cracked the top 4, I think. So maybe a change is what they need going forward. Moving on to number 43, our only 2 Mii Fighter team, Callie and Mary from Splatoon, the Squid Sisters. Now, we tend to avoid double Mii Fighter teams, because then you can just do that forever. But these two are different types of Mii Fighters. If I remember correctly, Callie is a brawler and Mary is a gunner. And also were born to be a pair. So, at least for this year, we made an exception, and this is where we decided to start. Up next is a classic combination, Captain Falcon and Travis Touchdown, Weeb's Bounty. As two bounty hunters that a very specific niche of people are like super into, we've got this team that could be very like all over the place on performance. The Falcon Punch is one of the single strongest moves in the game, along with Ganondorf's Warlock Punch, who's all the way at the top of the list. While Captain Falcon's neutral game in the hands of a CPU is not as devastating, they do share a lot of similarities, and so I wouldn't be surprised if, with the addition of a Mii swordsman, they were able to accentuate each other's strengths and really get some good progress this year. Moving on to number 45, Kirby and Pac-Man. The Big Eaters. While stylistically similar, mechanically they're not actually they don't really have that much in common. Pac-Man has been difficult to predict because he has been just sort of middle of the road on a lot of metrics. He's middlingly fast, middlingly strong, doesn't have a lot of kill potential, but doesn't lack in it the way Greninja does. Kirby has been a historical low performer, but you never know when that'll change. I know that he's undergone some patches recently that changed some of the numbers on his abilities, and that might change where he's at. Is Kirby? I think Kirby's game. Next up is number 46, the Monster Hunter and the Pokemon Trainer, Team Catch 'em All. While they may have different philosophies on what to do once they catch the creature, both of these share a common love of pursuing wild game. And so these two are together. Pokemon Trainer has done okay over the years. They're not one of the shining stars of the division, but they're also not winless like some of the people further down. And the Monster Hunter is a new swordsman, which is reasonably powerful, but also they're just a newcomer, so it's hard to know what to expect. Further in is Bowser from Super Mario and Heihachi from Tekken, the Bad Dads. Now, Bowser has not done particularly well either, but in previous years he's always been paired with one of his children, the Koopalings. And as we've said, Koopalings are very partner dependent, and it was just a bad matchup with Bowser. So while his record might not show it, I think Bowser might have more potential than he lets on. So we'll have to see if Heihachi is the appropriate partner for this Kingpin Koopa. Up next, another unlikely pairing, a boy and his dinosaur, Pit and from Kid Icarus and Yoshi. Yeah, there's not much to say here. Yoshi's a dinosaur. He's okay. Pit, even though having almost exactly the same moveset as Dark Pit, has typically not done as well. That might be due to the partners he's been paired with. Yoshi has been middling at best, but did have some success year one with Om Nom Nom when they were paired with the Piranha Plant. So it's hard to tell exactly where this will go. We'll have to see. Moving on to number 49. Another monolith of the previous game that got nerfed into oblivion, Bayonetta and Shantae, as I believe a Mii brawler, the Wicked Weaves. Now, these two, there has been some difficulties with Bayonetta previously. She has a lot of very powerful moves, but her character is complicated, and the AI has sometimes struggled with that. That being said, she does have a lot of moves that can come out very quickly and have a lot of kill potential, the way that Cable or Ganondorf or DK or a lot of the higher ranked characters do. If Shantae can help fill in the gaps in her defenses and actually keep a consistent pressure on opponents, then there's a chance for her to climb the ranks. But it is definitely a low starting bar, as Bayonetta has not particularly performed well previously. Up next, a deep cut joke, Team Nocturne, with Joker featuring Dante from Devil May Cry. These two exist purely for the meme, but we'll have to see. They might work well together. Mii swordsmen have been all over the place with regards to exactly how well they perform. Joker, while a DLC character that is known to have reasonably high potential, was never able to capitalize on that. That might mean that these two really need to find each other, and maybe Joker has improved over the years as the AI has had more time to develop. I don't know what they've changed. I haven't been keeping a really close eye on what the patch notes for CPU AI do. I don't even know if they actually share that. Up next, a team that the CPU has had trouble with, but has shown potential in IRL tournaments. Pichu and Jigglypuff, the Killer Jokes. Now, both of these characters have very distinct weaknesses. Jigglypuff is basically made of paper. Pichu is incredibly light and does damage to themselves when they use their electrical attacks. But Jigglypuff has a move that's basically a one-shot if they can land it, and Pichu is small and hard to hit, and basically Pikachu but faster. If the CPU happens to lock into their strategies, these two could be very powerful. But previously that has not been the case, and so they are pretty far down Up next, another pair of brawlers is Ryu from Street Fighter and Terry from King of Fighters, the Kings of Fighters. These two are largely dependent on close range attacks, although they do each have a projectile. And have not had stellar performances previously. The AI has somewhat struggled in using these more complex characters. But DLC characters tend to trend upwards with their performance, at least in the limited experience we've had. And while Terry didn't do particularly well last year, maybe he'll do better this year. And while Ryu hasn't typically done fantastic, he hasn't been like the worst on this list. Up next, another double DLC character, I believe this might be the only one of those, is Sora from Kingdom Hearts, specifically Kingdom Hearts 2 here, and Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII as the End. Now, these two are both representative of the end of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, as Sora was the last of the characters, and, well, as the end boss, Sephiroth has been the end boss of Final Fantasy VII, and a secret boss in multiple Kingdom Hearts games. So, putting them together, it's a little hard to guess. Sephiroth did not do particularly well last year. That might be based on his pairing with his partner. That might be based on the fact that the AI just can't pilot him very well. But we have seen that the AI is capable of it as part of his launch event. So if they tuned it a little more, he might be particularly dangerous. And Sora, as a newcomer, we have no way to tell what he's going to do. So we had to rank them somewhat low because of that, but they definitely might punch above their weight. Up next is Olimar and Rosalina, Space Garden. These are both characters that have not done fantastic and have sort of hopped around teams a lot over the years. They've never been at the bottom of the barrel, but they do struggle getting more than a win or two in a given year. So maybe their combined strategy, since both of them tend to use these like living projectiles that might be compatible. Maybe they'll work well together, or maybe they'll just step on each other's toes and it'll all fall apart. Kind of hard to tell. Up next, at number 55, is Yu Narukami from Persona 4 and the Mii Brawler in You and Me. It's fun. Get it? Anyway, this is, I guess, the other double Mii team, which I had forgotten existed, which made me a liar earlier when I said that Callie and Mary were the only one. But they are also pretty high potential, because even though the Brawler is one of the lower performing Miis, they have reasonably shown up as other NPCs, like the other characters like Tifa, that are much higher up the list. And Yu is a Mii swordsman, and that has also shown up pretty high up the list. So together they might be able to overcome each other's shortcomings. It'll be interesting seeing if this is actually a compatible team or not, and whether this is something that'll stick around. At number 56 is Palutena and Aerith, the Power of Prayer. These two have both done poorly in the previous years. Palutena with Pit was just not a good mix. Neither was Aerith and Sephiroth. Probably should have seen that one coming. But as an existing team, these two together, maybe they'll be a better match. Palutena does have some very odd range and some good zoning abilities, although she did lose a lot in the drop from Smash 4 where you were able to customize her moveset. Her basic moveset is not the best. Aerith, on the other hand, is a Mii. I think they're a swordsman. It might be a brawler. One second, let me check my list. Aerith is a swordsman. They use their little staff as their sword. And that is typically a well-performing character, and even though they didn't do particularly well with Sephiroth, we'll have to see if maybe a change of pace is just what they need. Up next is Banjo, Kazooie, and Sonic, the Rare Beasts. These guys are just odd. Banjo was also a new DLC character, and so didn't perform particularly well on their first year. Sonic has been sort of all over the place, but also not an incredibly high performer. So they're a little low on the list, but as a newer character, Banjo definitely has room for improvement, and want to see if that actually does anything for them. Up next, number 58. The Ice Climbers and Wendy's Frosties. The Ice Climbers have typically not done well. They are not... I don't believe they've won at all over the course of the entire tournaments. And Wendy is in a similar situation, but as a Koopaling, has a wider pool of data to pull from. I don't think the AI for the different Koopalings are actually that different, and teams like Remy and Crazy Kids have done particularly well. So if it turns out that perhaps Ice Climbers is a good match for a Koopaling, then this team might do particularly well. But that is definitely a gamble, as neither of them have done particularly well in the past. Up next is another Koopaling team, Ludwig and Diddy Kong, Playground Inventors. Diddy Kong is another one of those underperforming characters where he has never really done that well, and it's hard to tell whether that's just because he never had a good match, or whether it's he's not a particularly good character. But both him and Ludwig have definitely been sort of hanging around the bottom of the barrel, and we'll have to see if they're able to claw their way out. A similar team that has also been there at the bottom of the barrel is the Team Rocket Grunt and Bowser Jr. Junior Villains. Team Rocket Grunt is a grunt. They don't do anything, they're just sort of there from a team. And while that is really just flavor, they aren't a particularly powerful brawler either. They haven't had much success last year with Pichu, and Bowser Jr. has also not done well at all. But Koopalings are all over the place, as said previously. So maybe they'll still wallow here at the bottom. Maybe they'll get higher up. We'll have to find out. Moving on to number 61. Bomberman and Duck Hunt, High Explosives. There's not a whole lot to say about this. Neither of these party members were particularly good. But Duck Hunt is one of the odder characters. They have a zone control that doesn't really attach to their body in any meaningful way. So they could behave very erratically and do things that really don't follow the conventional methods of what we would predict a battle to go. So while historically they've done very poorly, it wouldn't take much to turn that around. Down at the bottom, at number 62, is Byleth and Byleth, Myself and I. Byleth is another DLC character that has not done well. I don't know if they've ever won. They might have had like a win at some point, but they've certainly never done particularly well. That might be because the AI doesn't know how to use them, it might be because they're not very good, or it might be because of their pairing. But now, we will find out for certain which one it is, because they have no one to blame but themselves. Moving on to team number 63 is another DLC character, Min Min, who did not win her only match last year, and a newcomer, Pigman from Minecraft, as Tonkatsu. Min Min is another one of those characters like Duck Hunt that is very odd. You're able to control her arms in very strange ways, and like arc your attacks and come at your opponent from strange angles. It's very disruptive in normal, like, human play, but the combination of the AI not being like particularly great with it, and also the opposing AI having a better reaction time to like known stimuli, since like Min Min isn't as unpredictable to them, they were coded with it, could mean that Min Min might not be able to perform that well, or it might be that the AI was just catching up last year and now they'll really be able to shine. We'll find out. And finally, at the very bottom of our bracket, we have number 64, Steve and Jeno, The Impossible Dream. Sorry for the Windows sounds. That's on me. If you guys hear it on your computer too. So Steve did not perform well last year, while other of his Minecraft echoes did. So like Alex performed fantastic, but Steve got knocked out in the first round. Same thing with Geno. Sans performed fantastic as a Mii gunner, but Geno got knocked out in the first round. Together, maybe they'll be able to like cobble together that success that they found in other places, or maybe they'll just step on each other's toes over the people who wanted both of these characters screaming at one another. So who knows? That is the bottom of our bracket. So now that you have all 64 teams, actually, no, I'll show you all at once. Here's the full roster. I'll be posting these as along with the descriptions of who these characters are in the Discord in a bit. So if you would like to hop in there, it's !Discord in the chat, or I will also put it up on the YouTube description. And you can feel free to ask any questions or brainstorm, and definitely enter your predictions and share your shot at getting a win here. Now, let's do some quick bracketology trivia. As I mentioned, the teams were seeded in such a way that the main teams were based on like just the progress of the team specifically, and then new coming teams have had their seed based on their individual participants' raw number of points. This is made for some funky scoring systems, especially if you look at how they would be scored through the other metric. For example, based on individual participant records, the highest scoring new teams are Newest Horizons and the OG, both with over 75 points, which is primarily because they each contain one of the Year 1 winners. This would make them the 6th and 7th seeds respectively if we went purely with that metric, but since they're newcomers, they're instead the, I believe, 29th and 30th. Conversely, the lowest scoring returning team, as measured by that metric, is the Beyblades with only 5 points, which would put them somewhere between the 58th and 61st seed, depending on how we did tiebreakers. Of the DLC characters who have participated previously, only the Dragon Quest hero Erdrick, Banjo, the Minecraft zombie, and Alex from Minecraft won a match in their first year in the tournament. Joker, Byleth, Banjo, Terry, Min Min, Steve, Sephiroth, Pyrrha, Mithra, and 2 of the other Dragon Quest heroes all lost in the first round of their respective debut years. So, there is some existing pattern that might suggest the new DLC characters might not do that well, even though they are objectively very powerful characters. On the other side of things, there are some that the AI don't particularly know how to use well at all. There are 10 characters who have participated in all 3 previous years, and so far haven't won a match at all. Those are Bayonetta, Bowser Jr., Diddy Kong, Ice Climbers, Ken, Pichu, Kirby, Rosalina, Zero Suit Samus, and Fox. Fox is the surprising one on that for me. But for whatever reason, one reason or another, they've never won a match in these tournaments. They're just not good team players. The final roster of this year's tournament is comprised of 19.5% Mii fighters. Even though each Mii does have a unique combination of moves, or at least that was the intent. There's also, I guess, only 2 teams of double Miis, which are the Squid Sisters and you and me. The only non-Mii variant character available that has not been included in the tournament is Male Corrin. Basically, every other variant that looks like a distinct character is somewhere in this tournament. There has been at least one Mii in the final 4 teams every year, including the first, where there was very minimal Miis included. And Game Theory has made it to the top 4 both years they've been a team, but has yet to win. So maybe it is their year. Now, as a quick aside, how to fill out your bracket. If you go to the link provided, you'll see the bracket of like each match. It will be listed there. and there will be a little button over the top of it that says "Make your prediction," and you can go. You can list out all of your predictions. Make sure you give it a title, so you tell which one's yours later in the listing. And you don't have to put like a real email in, but maybe put like some way to identify you, so we know who actually won when it's over. Other than that, the bracket predictions will be closing just before we start the first match, which will be... checking the calendar. The first match will be at 7 p.m. on Friday, April 1st. So just in time for March Madness. That is when we will start the stream, and I will do a quick announcement, and then we will lock in the brackets and start doing the first round. The tournament will be spread over 4 streams. I will post the exact times in the Discord for everyone to be available, but generally it is April 1st, April 3rd, April 5th, and April 9th will be the 4 streams. The first one will cover half of the first round. Yeah, because that's the first 16. The second stream will do the second half of the first round. The third stream will do the second round, and then the fourth stream will do the rest of the tournament. Because with each round being half as long as the previous ones, it'll be about 16 matches a stream. Results will be posted as they happen, and you can keep track of how your prediction is scoring by going to the predictions tab on the challenge page. I hope that some of you decide to participate, and I'll see you there soon. Thank you for watching, and that is where we will end this bracketology video.